So, a little bit of news came out this week that people are reporting issues with battery life after iOS 16 has come out, and also with the new iPhones, the iPhone 14s and iPhone 14 Pros. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it gets a little bit confusing. We kind of have mixed reports. I personally have not had any issues with my iPhone 14 Pro and the new operating system. I haven't heard too much from you in the community either. So if you have been noticing battery issues, I'd be curious to hear from you. But I wanted to talk about that a little bit because typically with a new iOS launch and with the launch of new phones, we do start to see an uptick in reported issues about battery drains. If you go back and look historically, you'll see this happen, and it kind of cycles through. Sometimes it's more extreme than other times, and usually those reports last for about a week or 2 weeks after the launch of the product, or launch of the operating system, launch of the new product. And we're kind of getting on that cycle right now. We're getting to those 2 weeks, and we're still seeing some spotty reports. And this can feel sometimes like Apple didn't QA the operating system properly or something went wrong with the OS, but it can often also be a normal effect of the update and likely will calm down after a few days or so. And the reason for that is there is a lot of background things that happen after an update or when you get a new device and you kind of transfer all your stuff over. Specifically with iOS 16, there's a new photo processing that goes on in the background, happens on device, and it's for the new duplicates feature. So it's scanning to identify duplicates in your photo library. So if you have a large photo library, that can be running for a bit of time. Now, it's my understanding this should be only happening when your device is not in use and connected to power. So I don't know if there's anything related to that. I haven't really monitored it. But yeah, that could be going on. I actually used the new duplicates feature, and it was pretty cool. It found 1,800 duplicate photos in my library, and about 15 duplicate videos, and that was out of 20,600 photos. Some of them were in there 3-4 times, and what was cool about the new feature is it has an option to either merge just the exact duplicates, so same file size, same format, and all that stuff, or it can merge the images and keep the highest resolution, best format one, and it also says it will merge all of the metadata. So it merges all that together, keeps the highest res one, and then puts everything else into the recycle bin. Now, I felt safe in doing this because, as you know, I'm a fanatical backup person, and so I have archived backups of all my photos. So if it's messed up, I'll let you know. I'm trying it out. I'm going to let it do its thing. Hopefully I don't end up regretting that, but it seemed to work just fine, and I still have all of the original images or the single images that I merged. So I kind of went through and spot checked, and everything looks pretty good so far. If you're not seeing the duplicates album, so the way this works is after it's done its scan, there should be a new duplicates album that shows up in your photo library, and then you can review the duplicates there and manage it from there. This is in, again, iOS. I haven't looked at it on the Mac yet, but it seemed to work pretty well. But, that's a new process that's kind of running in the background, and that could have some impact on battery, I would imagine. In a similar vein, a lot of times when you get a new device or do an update, there's spotlight indexing going on in the background. There's your automatic app updates because developers are pushing out new versions of their apps to support new features in the operating system, right? And so all this stuff goes on for the first couple weeks. And I think what we get a lot of times is this information bias where people don't realize all this extra stuff is happening and processing on their devices in the background, and that has an impact on battery life. So battery life goes down for a little bit, but it should eventually balance out and kind of take care of itself. If you are continuing to have battery life issues, a lot of times just rebooting the phone or hard resetting the phone or doing some of those things can help. But yeah, we'll just kind of keep an eye on it and see what's going on. Just another thing related to battery, Apple did note in a support article that if you enable the keyboard haptics, and this is a new feature that I love. Well, haptics have been around forever, but as I noted on a recent episode of the MacCast, iOS 16 now gives you the ability to separate the keyboard sound on iOS from the keyboard haptics. So you can have both of them turned on, you can have one turned on and the other one turned off. But Apple's support article did note that keyboard haptics can have an impact on battery life. And that makes sense because, every time you type a key, they're having to, trigger the taptic engine to kind of make that feedback happen. So they don't note how much of an impact it has on battery life. I would imagine it would be relatively small, and for me, totally worth it. So I turned off my sound because that bugs me, the little clickety clackety sound, but I left the haptics on because I like the tactile feedback. So you can adjust this if you go into settings, sound and haptics, and then keyboard feedback. You'll see the toggles for each of those options, sound or haptics, and you can mix and match to your heart's desire, which is a pretty cool new feature in iOS 16. iPad OS 16.13 beta is out, and some pretty good news for iPad Pro owners because they adjusted one of the key new features that's coming in iOS 16.1 that had been previously limited to just M1 iPad Pros, and that is Stage Manager. So if you want to test that out, the public and developer betas of that are out now. I personally will be waiting for the release, which should be coming sometime in October, so in the next few weeks or so. So I can hold on for that. But sounds like Stage Manager will now work on the 11-inch iPad Pro first generation and later, and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro third generation and later. So those are the, I think, 2018 iPad Pro 11-inch models, and 2020 12.9-inch iPad Pro models, if I'm remembering those dates correctly. And, previously, that feature was going to be available only for non-M series iPads, and that created quite a kerfuffle, as you probably remember. And so Apple's engineers kind of got on the problem. They figured out how to make it work for those previous models. One of the ways they made it work was they limited the support for Stage Manager on external displays to the M series iPads. So you'll be able to run it on device on an older iPad Pro, but if you want to have Stage Manager on device and on your extended display, you are going to still need an M1 series iPad for that. But that's pretty cool that they were able to do that. And it also appears that the same models will also be getting the display zoom feature or option as well. So Apple adding a couple new features that were originally exclusive to the M1 iPad Pro back to older iPads. And so I thought that was pretty cool to see happen this week, and I look forward to checking out iOS 16 when it does release. And then one other little bit of information on the latest iOS 16.1 beta. This was uncovered by 9to5Mac. They noticed that it looks like Apple's going to include a satellite connection demo to allow users of iPhone 14 models to try out the emergency satellite experience without actually having to trigger an emergency response. I think they're trying to get ahead of the curve on that one, because I have a feeling without a demo mode, a lot of people would have tried to trigger that feature and overwhelmed the emergency response system and the satellite system and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a good call where you can kind of check out the feature, see what the experience is going to be like, but not really trigger an emergency response. So I thought that was a pretty good call. But that's kind of some of the latest things that are going on with iOS 16.1 betas.